This Fox News alert deals with some of what the White House rolled out today, new measures to crack down on illegal immigration. Homeland Security today ordering planning for construction of a border wall to begin immediately. That, of course, was one of the president's main campaign promises. Critics say the president's estimate of $10 billion for the project understates what it will actually cost. But beyond money, there is the issue of eminent domain. Our next guest wrote an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal called "Trump Can't Build the Wall Without the Real Estate." It reads in part, to build the wall, the U.S. would need to own all 1,954 miles of the border. Most of this land is now private property, especially in Texas, where the U.S. government owns only 100 miles of the 1,254-mile border. To acquire the rest of the land, Washington would need to employ eminent domain, the authority under the Fifth Amendment to seize private property for public use upon payment of just compensation. Recent history shows that's easier said than done. Let's talk with the man who wrote those words, Evan Siegfried, author of GOP GPS. He also worked on Rudy Giuliani's presidential campaign. President Trump obviously was a real estate developer, I guess still is. He's going to have some trouble getting the land he needs for this wall?
Yes, it's a very big challenge because it actually takes a great deal of time to go through and take each piece of land. We're talking about parcels of land that at some points are just as wide as a parking spot, but they're privately owned. In Texas, it's a 1,254-mile Texas-Mexico border, and 87% of that is privately owned by private citizens, many of them ranchers. And President Trump, he has boasted that he will complete the wall under cost and under expected time, but it's going to take an immense amount of time to go through the court system and pay the prosecutor.
Because he's going to have to go to each one of those ranchers and say, we need, what, 50 feet, 100 feet of your property as long as it stretches along the border?
Yes, and he's not only going to have to do that, but they're going to have to compensate them. And in the 2006 border fence, which was passed by a bipartisan group of Congress, including now Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer, they found, or in my own research, I discovered that most of the government's just compensation offers were well below that. The government ended up paying 10 to 40 times more for pieces of land than they initially offered. And that's going to cost us a lot more than $10 billion.
I want to take a look at some of the spots along the border that they're talking about. Homeland Security says it has identified potential places, quote, where we will build a wall in areas where the fence or old brittle landing mat fencing are no longer effective. So far, those locations include near El Paso, Texas, Tucson, Arizona, and El Centro, California. Makes sense that where you've got the biggest population concentrations along the border, that's where you need the most robust deterrent for keeping those people from coming across into the United States.
Yes, it should be stated that President Trump is actually right to focus on border security, but building a physical wall isn't the best way forward. We could take the money, regardless of who pays for it, and use that to pay for an electronic wall, which would include more drones, more sensors, and that could help ICE actually enforce it. Additionally, 40% of illegal immigrants come into the United States through legal means. They could fly into JFK Airport and they just overstay their visas. So we could then implement an e-verify system, which would help cut down on illegal immigrants through other means.
But that electronic monitoring fence was tried. It was proposed in that earlier iteration of the fence and didn't go so well.
That was 11 years ago, and the technology has vastly improved. Look at where we've come with sensors and drones. You and I could order a drone off of Amazon and be able to see everything going on for a mile each direction. And if we can use that to pinpoint the way it goes, that would help. Additionally, in 2006, that wall caused even conservative ranchers who had their land essentially cut off because they didn't build the wall or the fence along the border itself due to logistical and terrain issues. It caused them to have to actually ask permission from the government to go onto their own land, and ranchers are very upset and nervous.
So you don't think that the people who own this property along the border, who many of them have complained about being overrun by illegal immigration, you don't think they would just say, here, President Trump, take 50 feet of my land for, the next couple of miles?
Well, again, this happened in 2006 with the border fence. And there was one particular rancher I came across who told Texas Monthly that he was a conservative, he's very strong on stopping illegal immigration and didn't want them coming across his private lands. But because of the way the government did it, he now has to ask the government permission anytime he wants to even take his cattle out to graze on the fields. That impacts him economically and actually makes it harder for him as a rancher to earn a living and provide for his family.
Obviously, it doesn't build a lot of affection for Washington.
No.
Evan Siegfried, interesting. Thank you.